Hey everybody, this is Holly Teagarden. I am your everyday life coach. Today on episode 26, we are talking about finding self-compassion and to stop being your worst critic. And the thing is, we've all heard this saying, right? You're your own worst critic. I can remember being, I think, either in middle school or high school, and my parents saying to me that they would never, how did they phrase it? I basically was like my worst critic. They would never be critical of me because I would just sit there and take myself apart. And I mean, it's just so true. We do this as adults, as kids. We are so harsh and mean to ourselves. We're like, but why, right? I mean, when you think about it, it's about not being secure with ourselves, not loving ourselves enough, and this whole idea of trying to be perfect, right? Because we're pushed into these ideals that aren't even real, but we feel like we need to get there. So, when I think about it, it's such we all do it. But what if we were to stand back and say, okay, the things that we say to ourselves, what if somebody said the same thing? So, what if my friend said, I don't know, you suck at blah, blah, blah. If somebody said that to me about me, oh my gosh, I would feel horrible. I would feel so horrible and judgy and, just devastated. So guess what? When we do this to ourselves, and we are all at fault for this, some more than others, our brain feels no different, right? When we do it or whether someone else does it. In fact, we feel worse. And it's all comes down to loving ourselves more. Right? It's just and even when I say that, I love myself, loving myself more, I just feel a sense of calm and an acceptance. And to kind of find that self-compassion, I'm going to give you some ways that I've used in my my own head. Here's one. Would you like it if, fill in the blank said or thought that of you? So the next time you are critical, pause and be like, man, would I like it if my best friend said that about me? Pretty much no one's going to be, oh yeah, I would love it. I would love it. No, everybody's going to say, no, I would not like it. Or, if I said those things about that same person, right? How would they feel? Flip the switch. They feel like shit, right? So, why do you do it to yourself? So these two are really about, taking a breath and kind of role playing in a way. And for sure, they're going to be a slap in the face, rude awakening with what you're doing. Another way is to really accept that no one is perfect. And it's funny, my 11-year-old says this to me all the time. She's like, the only person who's perfect is God. No one's perfect. We all have faults. And every day we should just be say this to ourselves, right? When we wake up, today is not going to be a perfect day. No one's perfect. I might fail. I might screw up. And it's okay. The people in my life are still going to love me. I'm still going to love me. And I think the more that we can accept this imperfection, the more compassion that we are going to have. And the thing is, and this is another one, this is not about a pity party for one. Okay, I'm not talking about a pity party. What I'm talking about is putting things into perspective more. So, all these I hate to call them faults, but yeah, let's just call them flaws. It's just accepting them. We all have them, right? And it's not like, I'm this way. No. It's about just putting in perspective, a greater thing. There are worse things that could happen. There are worse places that you could be. You could be sick. Putting these things into perspective. I also think one of the things that we should really look at when we're talking about finding self-compassion is what motivates you, right? Because I think that when we're young, we're taught this whole being critical will make you stronger, right? Being perfect will make you stronger. And so we're trained in this way, and that's why we have this kind of self-critical behavior. But really, what motivates you? Figure that out. It's you know what? Being shitty to myself does not motivate me. That doesn't make me stronger, change my behaviors. This is what motivates me. And kind of follow that as your beacon with things. Write it out. Put it on Post-it notes in places that you need to remember it. Another thing I want to say is being mindful of what you say or do. So, and what you say can be internal talk. So, you could be doing something that, and you might say to yourself, yeah, I suck at this. And this person is so much better at this, and I just suck at it. It's ridiculous. Okay, being really mindful, and that is slowing your brain a little, slowing your internal dialogue, and saying, no, that's not healthy to think about that. And just accepting yourself, right? Accepting these flaws and differences and just being grateful for them. I talk so much about gratitude. I know I've shared an episode about that, and I've reiterated in other episodes. Go back to that. Really being grateful for the flaws and the differences that we have. Because in the end, I think, when we judge ourselves less, what we're going to find is that judgy lens that we have is going to be lessened. So we're going to look at people and embrace their imperfections and embrace their differences, right? Because so many times if we live in this kind of self-critical state, when we see somebody else doing something that we don't like or we don't accept, we get all judgy. And they're just doing their own thing. We all have flaws and we're all different. So, when we practice more self-compassion, we're going to inevitably have more compassion for others. And that is such an awesome, awesome thing. When you think about what's going on in the world right now, we need more compassion. And I think it's not only important for us as individuals, but for the folks that listen to this podcast that are parents. It's important that we talk to our children and really show our children that compassion for ourselves and others is so important. I honestly think that it's more important than self-esteem. I do, and I know, some people might say that's wrong, but I really think that compassion and being compassionate towards ourselves and others is one of the most important things that we can do. And so I really hope that you'll download this podcast, kind of listen to some of the ideas that I've talked about, whether it's like the role playing, whether it's like having a mantra where every day, you put it out there that like, okay, like no one's perfect, no day is perfect, like, and it's gonna be okay. Whether it's like looking at your life and putting it into perspective, not in the way that it's a pity party, figuring out what motivates you, being mindful of what you say or do, and just kind of accepting our flaws and being grateful for them. I feel better after doing this. Please let me know, what you think about this episode. Hit me up on social, email me, post a comment on this podcast. This is Holly Teagarden, your Everyday Life Coach, episode 26, Finding Self-Compassion and Stop Being Your Worst Critic. Thanks.